1,000-word essay on ScoMo and his Pentecostalist belief. So I described this in the book, but when I was 17, I got involved with this Pentecostal church, these born-again Christians, for about 10 months. I ran around with them, did all the crazy stuff that you do, and eventually got out because the whole thing was just ridiculous. Well, anyway, ScoMo's still in it. And so as I was going through this book, looking for something to read out, I came across this little part of the book that I want to read to you right now, okay? So I'm going to read 3 little pieces that run for about 3 or 4 minutes each, right? So this is the section which is called, it's called Grimmer Still, okay? So I talk about climate and crisis, but I also talk about a bunch of other things that sort of compound the problems of our planet. And this subheading is called The Superclass. I said, there is one thing scarier than an extremist Pentecostal hoping that the world burns up so they can get raptured and go to heaven without dying. And that is a Pentecostal with political or economic power. Guess what we've got in Australia right now, ScoMo. One of the big questions that comes up in discussions about climate change is why is there no proper response from government? If the role of government is to govern in the best interests of society, why do they continually throw the public under the bus regarding the climate and biodiversity crisis? The truth is that most politicians don't do the job we employ them for. Instead, they look out for their corporate interests, either through bribery, lobbying, or other salacious mechanisms, and the influence of money in politics means that the powerful commercial interests get their way at the expense of the public. Understanding this dynamic and finding the weak spot is vital to making what comes next, better. A good place to start is a conversation about power is with the superclass. In the book, Superclass, The Global Power Elite and the World They Are Making, David Rothkopf poses the question, who's running the world? He devises a scientific model to answer the question by defining a class of people who have a disproportionate amount of influence on global decision-making. When Rothkopf wrote Superclass, there were about 6 billion people on the planet, so he sought to understand the 6,000 most powerful people representing 1 in a million. He analysed these people looking for patterns and found that power is highly concentrated among this elite group and that there are relatively few people who control things. Hedge fund managers, for example, often have controlling interests in hundreds of companies. Ultimately, if there is to be a shift towards a sustainable future outcome for humanity, which means turning off the fossil fuels in a swift and ordered manner and regrowing nature, the superclass need to get on board. The question is, how do we shift the trajectory of the most powerful people in the world? So, a little question there for you to ask ScoMo next time you meet him. Okay, I want to read this little section here. This introduces the concept of the Anthropocene, which is the concept that is underpinning the Quen icon, okay? So, for most of our time, we humans lived as hunter-gatherers in sync with nature. However, when the last ice age, that's bound to happen, the ear cockroach fell out. Sorry. However, when the last ice age receded 12,000 years ago, we started on a big project called civilization. Geologists know this period as the Holocene epoch. We grew things and built things, including cities and farms, pottery and weapons. About 250 years ago, around the year 1750, the planet was ruled by engineers. So we had an industrial revolution, powered by coal, a black substance found in the ground made from ancient trees. In the early 1900s, we found oil and used this oil to power 2 big world wars. When the Second World War ended, the global economy began to expand rapidly. We had discovered economic growth. This is really where the long future sustainability story starts, because prior to the mid-50s, human activities had not had such a profound impact on nature as to endanger its survival. However, over the next 40 years, by the year 1990, human activities were undermining the Earth system that had allowed life to flourish on this planet for billions of years. In 2016, a world body of geologists gathered in South Africa and agreed that we humans were now in a new geological era distinct from that of the past 12,000 years. The Holocene epoch had ended, they said. We were now living in the Anthropocene epoch. The Anthropocene means the age of humans. The geologists believe that this new age started sometime in the mid-1950s and that the beginning can be detected in the soil and rocks by a layer of plutonium deposited from nuclear bomb tests. Let that sit with you for a minute. The signature of the beginning of the age of humans is a planet-wide layer of radioactive waste. Not off to a good start, but welcome to the Anthropocene anyway. Okay, and I'm going to read one more little piece, and then that will conclude this little section. Okay, this is a little small chapter, and it's called "The World is Better Off With Us." See, one of the things I'm trying to do in this book is I'm trying to counter some of the negative stereotypes that go with narratives about humans on the planet. I'm trying to create in this book, this is sort of the beginnings of trying to create a new sort of cultural frame by which people can understand their relationship to the living planet. Because at the moment, when we think of humans and the planet, we think of ourselves as consumers, we think of ourselves as the wrecking ball that's destroyed everything. So in here, I'm just trying to subtly reframe that whole narrative. And this concept of the world would be better off without us is quite common. And if you actually look around at what we've done to the planet, then it actually makes sense if you look at what we've done. If you imagine what the world was like 250,000 years ago before the humans came along to what it is now, big difference. But there's a couple of points about us that I address in this particular little chapter. It's a common argument that planet Earth would be better off without the humans, but this is simply not true. We humans have damaged the planet so much that now the only thing that can prevent the sixth extinction killing off most of the world's wildlife is us. The world would be better off with us, but only if we start doing our jobs. If all the humans disappeared tomorrow, the condition of the biosphere would deteriorate rapidly, killing off millions of species. Eventually, over millions of years, it would stabilise, but before then, some pretty serious consequences would unfold. Without humans to clean up the mess we have left behind, climate change-enhanced superstorms will excavate the world's landfills and flush hundreds of millions of tonnes of plastics and pollutants into the ocean. Without humans, the world's 450 nuclear reactors and their containment ponds will succumb to age and natural disaster, set afire, and contaminate the planet with deadly radiation. Without humans, the 1,000 kilograms of plutonium that resides in abandoned orbiting satellites will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and burn up. And without humans, many threatened species will die off without the proactive conservation efforts. Without humans, the trillion tonnes of CO2 that we've put into the atmosphere will continue to overheat the planet. We humans owe the living systems of Earth a debt of gratitude that can only be repaid by us putting things right with nature. This is our job, as well as looking out for the well-being of our fellow humans. This is our mission, you see. This is why we are here, to synergise with the natural living systems to create a Class 5 planet, that's the term that the astrophysicists used, to be with the wise stewards of the whole Earth system and live with nature deep into the long future. Thank you. All right. Okay, well that concludes the first part. Now we can just put some music on there, Andrew, and we will do the second part in a little while.